Hi everyone, today we're going to talk to Paula, who is a police officer and detective, about her job. For your job, is there any other education required, such as recertifications?
There is a lot of education that's required for to be a police officer. So most agencies, and I'm only talking about Connecticut at this point because that's what I know best, most agencies require a 2-year college degree in any subject. You don't have to major in criminal justice, or a 4-year service in the military. Some agencies are starting to require a 4-year degree or the 4 years of military service. Again, it can be in any major that you choose. Once you are hired, you then have to do it's about 24 weeks of a police academy, which is where they then teach you the ins and outs of police work, everything from motor vehicle laws to criminal laws, first aid, firearms, defensive tactics, motor vehicle stops, all the stuff that you would need day to day. Once you are then through the academy and back in your agency, there's still more training that you would have to do where you spend, usually it's about 12 weeks with a field training officer who teaches you the ins and outs of your agency. So each agency may have different forms and they may have different ways where they do different things. After that, when you're officially on your own, you then have yearly training that you have to do that's usually mandated by the state or by the governing body for the police departments that require updates on, things like, well, you always have to requalify with your firearms. If you are first responders for medical, you'll have to do first aid, CPR. There's other things like domestic violence. So each year, the number of hours changes and what you have to do on that. Then there's a lot of education. So then if you end up going into a certain specialized division, whether it's the traffic division, you may have to go to special courses on accident investigations, especially fatalities, because those are actually involve a lot of math and it's a lot of training to do that. If you then move into, say you get promoted and become a detective, there's a whole host of classes that you have to take for that, but they're usually interesting and they're spaced out. So it could be crime scene investigation, it could be interview and interrogation, it could be how to read fingerprints. And those you'll go to if you are in those positions. And then throughout, even if you do not move into the detective division or another specialized division, there's always options where if there's a class that interests you, you can apply to go to it and continue your training that way.
So there's definitely a lot of education, not one class and done.
There is not just one class and done. It is continual through the entirety of your career.
Was there a moment when you personally knew that this was the career that you wanted to go into?
Yeah, so when I was in college, I started when I was 17, and I didn't know, who knows at 17 what they want to do.
Nobody.
So, exactly. So I went to our state school, and I figured I would major in business, because that's what you do when you don't know what you want to do. And the summer after my freshman year, I got a job in an office, and I was like, great, business major, job in an office, and I hated it. I hated everything about it. I hated every day going to work. I came home with a headache every day, and I said, oh my gosh, I can't do this. Like, this is not for me. It was punching a clock. It was so boring. So I went back to school, and I changed my major, and I changed it into a social work field because I really like the idea of being able to help people. And I knew I could not do the same thing day in and day out. And it really hit me that police work was something that was different every day. I could help people like I really wanted to do, and it wouldn't bore me to tears like an office job would. So that really became my path.
That's a really good story. When you were new, can you describe what it was like to start out, both as an officer and then as a detective?
Sure. So when I started out as an officer, I was only the 5th female in the department of about 125. So that in itself is a interesting aspect to it, where you're working with mostly guys, and I did not have an issue with that. I enjoyed that. But starting out, because of the nature of the job, it's a mixture of really scary and really exciting. And it was everything I'd hoped it to be, and I had done some ride-alongs before I'd started, so I there were people that I knew who were officers would take me out and I could ride along with them for a shift. So I kind of knew some of that, what I was getting into, but it was definitely, there is a lot of excitement to it, but there's also a lot of pressure because there are life and death decisions that you have to make and life and death calls that you have to go on. So you always have to be at the top of your game, all while managing everything that's just completely new and different.
All right, great answer. So can you walk us through a day in the life of your job? I know no 2 days are the same, but generally there's got to be some routines that you had to do every day.
Yeah, so in patrol, you would either be on the day shift, the evening shift, or the midnight shift. You'd have to come in, be dressed and ready to go, and be in roll call. So roll call you would then go into, and the supervisor of that shift would fill you in on anything that happened in the shift before you. So if there were a whole rash of burglaries or something going on in your beat, you need to know that. So that was a time for you to hear what had been going on, what you missed, because you don't really get to see the people in the shift before you because you're switching out cars and you have to take your car. So that was a chance to really find out what you need to be aware of, what areas you need to give special attention to when you're patrolling. After roll call, you get your cruiser, and then you have to do your cruiser check. Make sure that you have all the supplies that you need in it, from oxygen tanks to medical supplies to your rifle to whatever it is that your agency says that you need. And then you just get out there, you sign on, tell dispatch you're ready to go, and you go out to your beat and you wait for the calls to come in. If it's a busy night, you're probably going to be going call to call, won't have a lot of time for proactive stuff. On the quiet nights, it's when you're patrolling your streets, you're checking your businesses. If hey, there's been a lot of car break-ins over here, I'm really going to spend a lot of time over here, and checking on that. So that's for patrol. Detective division's a little bit different. That we would also have our meetings, and we didn't have to work midnights unless we were on call. So we would go in for our days or our evenings. We'd have our meetings, so we'd hear if there are any big cases that were going on. That's also where we might get assigned a case, where patrol wouldn't handle. They would do the initial stuff on robberies, serious assaults, that sort of thing. But then the cases would then go to the detective division because you have the time to deal with it and to do the interviews. So that's where we would get assigned things. We'd hear about anything big going on. And then it was really, if we didn't have an active thing we had to go out to, it was up to us to structure our hours in terms of, I have an interview on this case, or, I have 10 open cases, and what can I fit in where? So it was really up to us. We had a lot of independence to do what we needed to do for that.
Sounds exciting, but definitely not like NCIS, right? Just set that straight for everybody.
It is so not like, yes, let me put it out there. If you are looking for NCIS or Criminal Minds, that is not it. It's a lot of interviewing. It is a lot of paperwork, although, again, it is not the same day after day, which is really great. You are not solving the case within the 60-minute TV window at all. It's very methodical, and you have to document everything.
So even though it's not NCIS, it's got to be rewarding. So what for you was the most rewarding part?
For me, the most rewarding part was being able to help people who called you in their time of need and coming to a positive resolution. So that I really like. I think one of the things, going back to starting out, that I was really nervous about was I'm not a guy. I'm not 6'2", and I did worry, like, am I going to get hurt? Am I going to cause someone to get hurt because I'm not a big guy? And my chief at the time said, the bulk of the calls, I want you to be able to handle using your words. Like, I don't want it to be where you have to handle things because you're a big, strong guy. That's not what we're looking for. And that really reassured me. And so when I went on calls and I was able to come to resolutions using my words and talking with people, that really made me feel good. And it was very, very few times that was not successful. So it made me feel like the training and the education that I had before going in really helped.
On the other hand, what was the most challenging part, and how did you either overcome that or make it manageable?
So I would say there are two really challenging parts. Just day by day, the hours can be really, really hard. If you are not used to working midnights, it's very, very challenging to be up overnight, especially like around 4 a.m. when your body says, I really need to be sleeping right now. And most of your friends and family who are not in police work aren't on a similar schedule. So you have to make a very conscious effort to keep those relationships when you're working, especially as the time goes by, because it would be very easy to let those relationships fall away just because of the hours. And the getting held over. I mean, so you could say, hey, I'm due to get out at midnight. And then they say, oh, no, you're not. And it's very last minute and not caring whether you have plans or whether you're tired or whether you were up all day. So I'd say the hours are probably the biggest from that point. The other thing is you see the absolute worst that people do to other people, and having to daily confront sometimes the worst that humanity has to offer, that can be really challenging and just really sad and really draining. So I think for me, it was very important for me to kind of be able to put that away when I left work and not bring that into my home.
That both of those things sound really difficult, so I applaud you for going into that career field because it's definitely not easy. So my last question for you is, do you have any advice for teenagers who are interested in following your career path?
I would say if you're interested in following into, going into the line of police work, a couple things. Get really good at kind of negotiating, conflicts with people, because that's going to be a big part of your job. Really make sure that from day one up until you go and apply, it's really important. So when you go to get hired, they look into every aspect of your life. So what you may do in high school or college, whether it's, underage drinking or you're trying something, marijuana or whatever it is, vaping, that's all going to come up. And many, many good people have been washed out of the process because of that. And so you have to be very mindful of the choices that you make from your teenage years on, because some agencies will not give you a second chance. And that goes to everything from bad credit, running up credit cards, missing a payment on something. They look into every single aspect of your life. So it's really keep your nose clean, make really, really good choices. I'm sure there are other agencies that maybe would not be as rigid about that, but a lot of the ones in our area and in Connecticut, they really are. So make good choices.
Good advice. Thank you.
Thank you for watching this week's episode of Occupation Connection. If you enjoyed what you saw, make sure to click the subscribe button, hit the like button, and leave a good comment below.